Good morning, class. Today we'll be talking about Israel's morality. And I want you guys to come and approach me with whatever questions you guys have about whether or not Israel's moral and whether or not them or the Palestinians are in the right.
Mr. Ferder.
Yes, Mr. Gindi.
So I was watching the news and I learned that Israel was an apartheid state. What makes it any different than South Africa?
That is an excellent question, Mr. Gindi. Okay, as we know, South Africa was an apartheid state because it was ruled by a minority group in the whites, ruling over a majority group in the blacks. So, when we use that same logic of a minority group ruling over a majority group, we assume that the two groups are Jews and Arabs, or Palestinians. So, there are two parts to Israel. There's the main state, and then there are the territories. Gaza and the West Bank. Within the West Bank, which is this area right here, we have 3 million Arabs and 2 million Jews. So there's a very common misconception that Israel as a total is an apartheid state. However, if we claim, as many Palestinians do, that the West Bank territory is not part of Israel, and we look at Israel as a state, we have 9 million Jews in the majority of the state as compared to 1 million Arabs. So that is very different to an apartheid state. Secondly, there has to be some sort of overt oppression. And when we look within the state itself, both Arabs and Jews have equal rights, as we can see from Arab Knesset members and Arabs having the right to vote equally to Jews.
Mr. Ferder,
Yes, Johnson.
when you hear people talking about pro-Palestinian movements, you hear them argue against that by saying that Palestinians employs violence. But knowing that the Palestinians are oppressed people, how can you blame them?
That's an excellent question, Johnson. So, when we're talking about the oppression of the Palestinian people, it's important to remember that even if we do consider them an oppressed people, that there are plenty of other oppressed nations that don't react the same way they do. If we stay with only in the Middle East, Israel has been oppressed since their inception and has never gone to the violent measures that the Palestinian people have done. For instance, the Jews have been captured and enslaved by the Egyptians, the Syrians, and the Persians, and even oppressed by the German regime. But instead of revolting when we were slaves, which is far worse than what the Palestinian people are having to deal with now, we instead banded together to not employ violence, but to try and overcome. And for instance, when the Germans took over and oppressed the Jewish people, we overcame and built a Jewish state. Johnson, get off your phone, put it away. Yes, Elli.
If Israel is such a democratic state, then why does it allow the Jews to have immediate citizenship and not the Palestinians?
Okay, when we're talking about Jewish citizenship and why it is the way it is, it's very important to remember that very recently Bibi Netanyahu declared officially in the Constitution of Israel that Israel is the state of the Jewish people, meaning that only Jewish people are allowed immediate citizenship because every Jew is an immediate citizen of Israel. Regardless of if you support them or you don't, you are immediately given pro-citizenship. So if there was a Jewish Palestinian, they would still be given immediate citizenship. It's also important to remind yourself that Palestinians are not the only ones who are not given immediate citizenship. Only Jews have that ability. So Christians who have lived in the state for a while could not have citizenship just because they haven't lived there long enough because they don't get immediate citizenship either.